Hey guys, it's Giovanni, and if you're an Asian guy, I want to share 8 dating principles that really help you. As a coach and as someone who started out really bad with no social skills, unable to even get one date as a virgin at 23 to a guy who kind of knows what's going on now, the first principle is just that you have to accept reality as it is, right? And so some girls just won't date Asian men. Now, there are many reasons for that. Some of it is just a sexual preference. Maybe some of it you could call quote unquote racist, sure. Whatever the reason is, I've learned to just realize that it doesn't matter. Unless you want to be like Nelson Mandela and spend your life being an activist, you're not here to change the world or to change people's minds. You're here to maximize your life. So don't get stuck in the mud of, oh, I have this problem because Asian guys have it bad, right? I've been there and it's not a healthy place to be and it's not productive. Focus on the things you can control, not the things you cannot. At the same time, right, it's not as negative as you think it is. The majority of women, right, are open to dating us. Let me explain. If you plot it out on a graph, right, on the y-axis is their level of attraction for Asian guys. And then on the x-axis is how foreign you are, right? Imagine like Asian-born American here on the left, versus, fresh off the boat on the right, let's say. And in most Western countries, right, group A women, as the foreignness increases, their attraction decreases. I have a friend like this, and basically she's a vet, very smart girl, and she just wants a white husband with a nice picket fence, someone who looks like her, right? She's not open to foreignness. And the more foreignness you introduce, the less attractive she becomes. And luckily for us, that's about 10 to 20% of the population. Then you have group B, which is the majority of people. As the guy becomes more different than her attraction increases. But if he's too foreign, her attraction decreases again. So she's kind of like a bell curve. And this is where most women are at about 70 to 80%. That means that if you can convey your background in a way that is not too foreign to her, in a way that's attractive, she's actually open to dating you. Then you have group C, the women who for some reason love Asian guys, and as the foreignness increases, their attraction increases exponentially. Here and here is really where most of the girls exist, about 80% of the population. Now, some of you might say, well, that's not my experience, and I'll explain to you why in a second through the Asian attraction ratio. But you have to understand that this is the majority of how macro trends work in most populations. How do I know this? Well, here's the scientific proof. There was a study called The Experiences of Foreign Students in Dating American Women. You can look that up yourself. Sturmer et al. In 2013, they had a study, and in quote, throughout history, people have been attracted to foreignness and the unknown, and they proved that a certain population were always attracted to people that look foreign. Salvatore also wrote in his study, a natural attraction towards non-tribe members allowed our pre-human ancestors to find genetically different mates to avoid genetic weakness. So it's literally programmed through sexual selection to be attracted to variety and foreignness. And there's always going to be people like that because we need genetic variety to continue to evolve. So compared to, when Bruce Lee was alive, right? Interracial marriage has been legalized around 1967, give or take a few years, depending on the state. And it's exponentially risen, right? And if you look at like Asian male to white female and also Asian female to white male, those numbers are also way up. This is just showing the different legal changes since up to 250 years ago. A lot of progression being made under the law. So systematically, we've reached equality. Third principle is trade your expectations for appreciation. K-pop is growing. Yeah, we know that. Yeah, we're seeing more and more interracial couples, sure. And you'll be like, well, these guys are K-pop stars or they're good looking. Well, there are a lot of non-good looking Asian guys doing just fine, okay? So how does this apply to you? Well, let me introduce you to the Asian attraction ratio. On the left side here is the distribution curve and if you're a regular Asian guy. Right, regular, quote unquote. When I was a regular Asian guy, studied hard, graduated from good school, but really wasn't socially savvy, and I didn't know how to dress well. 5% actually preferred me. Maybe there was 25% who were open to dating me, but 70% of them wouldn't date me, not because I was Asian, just because I didn't have any of the universal attraction triggers down. Now, on the right-hand side, right here, suddenly, when I have my stuff down, I call it Asian plus, but you can call it whatever you want. It's just, now you understand style, you understand the cultural differences, you understand how to get past the unconscious social barrier. And if you want to know how to do that, check out datingwithoutborders.net. that video explains everything. Now, suddenly, it's like 20% of girls actually like me. I stand out in a good way. 65% of them are actually open to dating me. And the rare 5 to 15%, depending on which city you're in, don't want to date me, that's fine, because I have 85% of the population that's available to me. I believe this was on a second date, and we were just having a good time. 85% visibility is more than you need to succeed, because all you need is one girl. Now, I haven't been to smaller, towns in Alabama, let's say. Probably the most racially divided town was probably San Diego, but most people were nice to me there. Race was never the main factor 85% of the time. I've probably approached thousands of people in San Diego, and I remember one guy called me chopsticks, right? And I've been there for like 6 or 7 years. That was the only time that happened. 8 out of 10 girls will still talk to me. The majority of girls are still open to dating or even pullable, depending on the night I was out. In LA or New York, it simply wasn't a factor. In LA, literally, I forget that I'm Asian until I walk into the men's bathroom and I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I look different. It's so diverse that if you have the basic skills, it doesn't matter. Before you judge, right, or you get angry about this, just know that Koreans are racist against Koreans, Japanese, and here in Taiwan, people are biased towards Southern Taiwanese versus Northern Taiwanese versus the Aborigines Taiwanese in the mountains, where you live. There's always going to be that us versus them tribal kind of division between people. And this is just human nature. Now, you want to go where you're best treated, right? Or at least learn how to compete where you're at. So let me break down some of the tiers of kind of the racial barriers that you'll face as an Asian guy. So tier 1, I would say, are the places that are really good. Not because they accept Asians, but it's more like it's so diverse that it doesn't matter. So New York City, LA, London, Rio de Janeiro, San Francisco, yes, but the ratio is bad. I would say Vegas based on the visiting population, not the local population. Then you have tier 2, like San Diego, Miami, right? Miami, I would say, is definitely very racially diverse, especially Latin culture. But San Diego in particular, it's okay, people are nice, but they do view you a little bit differently and you will run into that wall. And you have to learn the social techniques to break through that wall to have the same results. I've heard that certain towns, smaller towns, sometimes they treat you really well, but other times they look at you like you're an alien. And that can be an issue because there's just not that much diversity for you to actually go out and meet people and have a diverse enough dating pool to pick the right girl for you. Now, there are tier zeros. I personally traveled to parts of Brazil where, as an Asian guy, people look at me, but they look at me like I'm a peacock. It's like majestic. It's like, wow, look at the feathers. It looks so different. Rather than like an alien look in the States, which is like, this guy looks different. It's kind of weird. Eastern Europe, parts of Eastern Europe as well. And of course, if you're back in Asia, you won't feel that as well, right? So there's tier 0 as well. Tier 2 and 3 are probably hardest. And then tier 1 is playable. But then tier 0 is like actually easy mode or normal mode where you don't feel that social pressure that you look different. Your goal should be to become universally attractive and hit that 85% availability rate, okay? And this takes an evolution in your style, evolution in the way you communicate, and having the proper tools to do that will give you the level of freedom that a lot of Asian guys don't have right now. So how do you do that? Well, let's look at first level principles. Different cities and different types of people have what we call an unconscious social bias. That means that human beings, when you see someone that's different, you have a fight or flight response because they're from a different tribe. So certain non-Asian girls will have that reaction, and you need to figure out a way to overcome it. And I've developed 2 ways to just completely blast through it that allows you to actually follow regular dating advice. Without this, regular dating advice doesn't work because they always see you as different than them. So normal dating advice works when you overcome unconscious social bias. You understand the attraction ratios, where to allocate your time, and you understand how to progressively expose them so they don't get culture shocked, like this guy's just too different, to women in a way that makes them feel gradual attraction for you. And if you want to know how to do that, go to datingwithoutborders.net. There's a video there that I can't put on YouTube that shows you exactly how that's done. So once you learn these tools, right, then it's like, I'm good, I've got this handled. But I never accept myself as a finished product. So I'm always improving. But the nice thing is once you built this skill set, you can turn it on or turn it off. There are days when I don't care how I look, don't care about how, I'm just taking it easy. And then there are days when I go out and I'm like, okay, I need to turn on this system that works to be able to get certain dates with certain types of girls I want. And then once I get a girlfriend, I can turn it off again, right? You can live your life, you've got it handled, right? I remember I had my girlfriend, I could focus on work and other things and focus on building a relationship and didn't have to think so much about where can I get my next date. Dating skills, use it to enrich your life, not define it. Yeah, it's like when you don't have oxygen, you're like, I need air. But when you have oxygen, you barely think about it because it's already handled. First step is find out where you are, right? So for men, it's about 50% looks, 50% game, okay? You can try to learn it on your own like I did. I don't recommend it because it took me years to figure out. Method 2, you can use a formula that works. The university test formula is you find a friend and you upload your picture on his phone and you have him go around, hey, we're doing a university experiment on a scale of 1 to 10, right? You can even bring a clipboard or a notebook. How would you rate this guy in terms of attractiveness? And the girl will tell you, and you ask 20 people, and then you jot down the score, and then you do the same for him if he wants, right? That's the university test formula. You can also go on Photo Fieldr, you can post your picture on Facebook groups, or you can ask me or another coach. But basically you need to know, like, okay, based on how I look now, what's my base stat, right? And once you know your base stat, you can build on top of it. Remove ego, pride, shame, all the emotions. You're after the result to improve your life. See things as they are, but not worse than they are. You remember this chart here with the 3 groups of women? You remember the age and attraction ratio? With women who are in groups 1 and 2, right? People that are open to dating us. I have a series of questions that help you figure out her variety score. These questions are, have you ever traveled to another country or would you like to? What's the most adventurous thing you've done? Have you ever dated an Asian guy before, after the first date, or on the first date? And then you watch her responses. And the girls that are in group 3 that are not open to dating us, the response will be quick. Watch how interested she is in learning about different culture, basically like an explorer's mindset. And the people that have less of that tend to not be open to dating Asian guys. Not always, but I found in my personal experience after 35,000 approaches that most of the time, the girl will give you very short answers or very boring answers when it comes to her variety score. If you run good game, when you go to datingwithoutborders.net and learn how to do that, the reaction you get when you talk to 20 girls, 15 should respond well. And then there's like the remaining that they're like, yeah, cool, whatever. And as soon as you get a hint of this, be polite, don't judge, but just let that go as a dating prospect. And then focus your emotions on other people that are open to you. Recognizing this is really important because a lot of guys spend a lot of time trying to convince someone who can't be convinced. Most girls, right, in groups 1 and 2, into Asian guys are open to dating us. When you watch the response, there's this spark, there's this curiosity, there's this willingness to connect. And you'll sense it right away. It's very distinct, the 2 reactions, okay? These interactions, you can move forward and it could go somewhere. It could be a good friend. I've made good friends that way. It could be a dating partner. You just never know. But get a number and move it forward. I'll tell you a quick story. I had learned the basics of game, right? How to build my attraction. And I went to this kind of sports event where we played dodgeball or kickball, I think. And after kickball, everyone went to this pub and people were drinking. And I was hanging out with this girl, this white girl. And I was like, okay, I'm trying to practice my social skills. So I started talking to her and she was polite. And I remember telling her my story, like, yeah, I work at Google, you know, my dad was a diplomat. And by this point, I had learned how to communicate like my story in a cool way, but also not make it seem like I'm bragging, right? I was so happy when I was doing that because I'm like, wow, I'm able to express like my story. And I felt like I had fun telling it, but I also felt that if I was the listener, I would have been like, this guy seems pretty cool. And after I had the conversation with her, I remember one guy came over, there was a white guy, and he's like, oh, hey, there you are. And then she's like, oh, hey, what's up? All right, see you later. And she didn't even mention my name. She forgot my name. And I'm like, well, before I could say goodbye, she was off, right? So it's very, very obvious when someone doesn't respond to your attraction triggers, even if you're doing them well. So when you recognize that earlier, it'll save you a lot of time and embarrassment, and you just move on to the next. And when you do meet girls that are open to dating you, then you know like what to do to actually get the number and go on the first date, okay? There's a lot more I want to share with you, but these are kind of the 7 principles that I've learned You can learn more at datingwithoutborders.net. Ultimately, as an Asian guy, you have to recognize that there's an unconscious, hardwired biological trigger to respond in terms of fight or flight when someone looks like they're from a different tribe. If you can understand that first step, then you have the tools to override that, to get to a point where you can run proper communication from an attraction dating perspective that actually gets you the girls that are open to dating you. And when you have that process down, then it becomes repeatable. So even if you're in a country that's slightly closet racist or a little bit prejudiced, you can still, with consistent effort, get the results that you want. And that is freedom. Go to datingwithoutborders.net, watch that training video, and it explains in detail exactly how to do that with your online dating, with your social circle building, and with the girls that you meet every day, right? From stranger to friend to potential wife, girlfriend, okay?